Jenny, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you keeping on?
Hello?
How are you keeping on? Good?
I'm good, I'm good. I can only do an hour today. I hope that's okay.
That's all right. That's all right. Yes,
Okay.
that's good for me also because I can watch the match for half an hour.
Okay.
Right. Okay, that's all right. So we will, on our first 6 hours, we were short of 2 lessons. One is the corporate governance. Other one is the
Yeah.
IS-12. So we will try as much as possible to focus on those areas. I think last time I just told you what is corporate governance. Now, ultimately, all these organizations, whether it's a company or whether it's a association, it is managed at the top level. Company is managed at the top level by the board of directors. But if it's an association, it may be the executive committee. Now, SIMA, it's the council. So they have a set of the people who govern the company. So this is a big subject in your P3, but I don't know for why they have put it under F1, this one. Probably it is all to do with the preparation of financial statements. I told you the preparation of financial statements, the responsibility for internal controls, responsibility for risk management, all is with the board of directors. So I'm sure that may be the reason because F1 is concerned with the preparation of financial statements. So we are looking from that angle, who is responsible and what kind of a governance they should have. So what do you mean by governance? Governance is simply at the very top level how you operate and how you control the company. What do you mean by control? Now, if I assign you a task, I must be sure that you have achieved it for me. Otherwise, it is not controlled. So we know our children, we need to control. If we just tell them to do and if we don't follow it up, they may not do it. You have to keep a control on the children. Similarly, the employees need to be controlled, and that control happens through the arm, what we call the board of governors or the board of directors. So that's the way that the company is operating, and that is what we call corporate governance. So corporate governance is simply a system by which the organizations are either directed or we can call it operated and controlled. Earlier it was thought direction, but now it is much more to a lower level. It is the operation, because if you look at the financial statements, it's not that you direct the people to prepare the financial statements. You need to see that it is properly done. So it's more or less you are getting involved in the operations, and that is what we call operation and control. So generally this is done at the very top level. And you can imagine if what happens at the very top level, you get some people with crazy minds, people with irresponsible minds, people with lack of knowledge, people with people who are not concerned about the others. Imagine those people are running the organization for you. You have invested your money and you find at the top level, you find some crazy people trying to set up the thing. I'm sure you don't want to invest money on a company like that. Neither you want to work in a company like that. Neither if you are a banker, you want to give any money to a company like that. Neither as a customer, you want to buy anything from a company like that. So now looking from that negative angle, you can see how important the top for an organization. Who is at the top? Sometimes we vote for the people. The shareholders vote and appoint the board of directors, because that is the only way that a company can be properly controlled. So mostly the corporate governance has been there for, I think, for many years, but it became very prominent in 2000, particularly with the big corporates like Enron collapsing. What they found out was at the very top, the directors were cheating the shareholders. So it can be deliberate cheating. It can be due to lack of knowledge, lack of competency. It can be due to your uh, negative attitudes, too much of risk taking. Any of those things finally can put the company into jeopardize, and that means the shareholders' money is in jeopardy, and also the employees, the unions, the government, all those people can get into a big mess if the companies are not properly managed. And for that purpose, somewhere in 2000, in late 90s, there was a need for something called corporate governance. And its corporate governance is all to do with the direct and control. And now I would say it's more than direction, even the operation and control, because the directors are more or less working inside the company. So it's basically an operation and a control. Why corporate governance? This is the only way that a corporate can achieve its objectives. We know every organization, whether it's your school, old girls association, or whether the CIMA, whether it is ACCA, whether it is a company, it is driven by objectives. What do you mean by objectives? A set of people have got together to achieve something, a common goal. So basically you have certain objectives to achieve, and those objectives to be achieved only by very effective entrepreneurial and prudent management. So that management has to come by corporate governance, and mostly when we think about corporate governance, we think about big companies. But having said that one, not relevant that it will be a big company, even a smaller company should have corporate governance all the time as much as possible. So let's talk about it in more detail. What are the elements of corporate governance? Basically, when you have good people at the very top, people with some kind of a intelligence, some kind of a knowledge, some kind of a balance, it will reduce the risk of the company going crazy. Risk means company not achieving your planned objectives. That is what we call a risk. You and I, we are getting together to sit for the exam and to get to the paper. The risk is your plan is somehow to succeed in the exam, and the risk is always not getting to the exam, which we don't want it to happen at all. So we want to manage the risk. So basically what we are trying to look at is how to manage this risk, and that is what we are putting up all sorts of things. So when you have top people, they will manage, they will not keep everything open, exposed for people to rob, for things to perish or things to go down. They will manage. So basically it happens through good supervision and management, and also setting good practice guidelines. You remember we were discussing ethics. So the board of directors must set up the proper ethics. That is why CIMA, the council has set up a code of ethics for you and me to follow. So that kind of a thing, they know the CIMA members will be people of professional competence, people of professional behavior, people who will maintain confidentiality, people who will have that integrity, people who will be not biased towards anything like that. So that kind of practice guidelines, procurement procedures, sales procedures, not to cheat the customer, not to oversell the product. And that way, and by doing all that, finally what will happen is your overall performance should be much more better than a company which does not practice any of these. I have worked in both these setups. I've worked in the companies and even in the governments where they don't set any good guidelines and no proper supervision and management. And I have seen the downfall of those governments, those companies. On the other hand, I have seen the companies which set up very good guidelines, which set up good supervision and management, and surely the performance of those companies, those governments, those organizations are much more better than a normal other organization. So ethical and effective strategy. So that's, as I said, ethics always comes up. So that you cover all stakeholders, safeguarding all resources. So it's not only the company directors are interested about the shareholders. Truly they are interested in the shareholders. But that's not all. They have to look at the employees. They have to look at themselves, the directors. Because the directors, they have to ensure that they properly manage the company. And if you don't manage, you will be out of your job and you might struggle to find another job anywhere because you will be blacklisted all over. If you're a SIMA member, if you get suspended or blacklisted, that's the end of your all hard work. So simply, you have to have very ethical, strong ethical things and also very effective strategy. What do you mean effective strategy? A strategy that will achieve your objectives. You can have many strategies which are not achieving objectives. I remember I was working in the water sector. The objective is to give water to the consumers as much as possible. But I saw in those places, the politicians, they were not interested in water. They were just interested in promoting their political motives. What they do is, sometimes just before the election, they say, Kuma, I need money. So yes, why? No, I just want to put up a water tower in this particular area. So I asked why. Then they say, so I say, no, because they are useless putting up tower in that place because there is no water. There is no water source. They say it's all right. We want to just show the people that there's a water tower and the water will come. Can see. Totally unethical, totally ineffective strategy to spend your money. So that's
True.
yeah. Yeah, these things do happen. I come across all these practical aspects in my life. I fought with the politicians all the time because they just want to spend the money because the government has allocated money, knowing that there is no water, they want to put up a water tower just to mislead the people to get the votes. Just before the election, they come and, measure the roads and spend money, saying the roadway will be done. People go and vote for those fellows, and after that, you will not see them for next 5 years till the next election comes up. Yeah, our road is, the lane that we are staying is so bad. And just before the election, they came and they said, yes, we are going to do it. And next week, we are going to measure the road, all that. Now it's 1 year and 14 days. Nothing has happened.
Oh no.
Yeah, that is purely because we don't have top people, the effective people at the top level of those administration, the local municipal councils or whatever it may. And people must be also willing to apply the code. One thing is for you to have a code, but if you don't practice it, if you don't apply it, then SIMA is very, very focused from the certificate level right up to the strategic level. They are talking about the code of ethics, and even after you pass, you have to ensure that the code of ethics is properly worked out because they are totally willing to apply, not only to apply, if you violate it, to take the drastic action of even removing you from the membership. And all that means transparent accountability. You can't have good corporate governance and, suppress information. It is basically transparency. You come out with everything. If you are making a loss, you say we are going to end up with a loss. You don't try to suppress facts, hide facts, that kind of thing. So what are the driving forces of corporate governance? Why this corporate governance has come so much into the prominence last 20 years? Particularly at the last 25 years, if I would say, it is simply the globalization. All over, the business has crossed the boundaries of their own country territory. People are working through the internet. People are working through the websites. Today I can buy from eBay whatever we want it, and we can promote governance by that kind of because of that, there should be good corporate governance. You invest in foreign countries, foreign operations, so you have to ensure that those people manage the things very well. So this is one reason. Then all the time demanding equality for domestic and foreign investors. Lot of countries are discriminating the foreign investors after getting the money. They will put up higher taxes and all that. So demanding equality. So that is another force in the corporate governance. And also issues concerning financial reporting. I think this is what is more relevant to ours, F1, because financial reporting, we remember we have the framework, we have to ensure that the framework is properly adopted, and when the people don't adopt it, there can be a lot of issues of how the accounting is done, how the transparency is made up. Then there are certain characteristics of individual countries. You have to look at their cultures, you have to look at their own accounting standards, their own taxation, their own company regulations. So all these things means you have to be totally well knowledgeable, not only of your country's laws, even in the other countries' laws. And also, not but the least, the high-profile corporate scandals that happened in 1990s has created a kind of a need for a very strong force of corporate governance all over the country. So corporate governance theory, there are two basic theories. One is what we call stewardship theory. The management, that is the board of directors, are considered as stewards because the money of the shareholders are entrusted to them, and therefore they have to work in a way as good stewards of the money that has been entrusted. So the management should work with the strategy, and technically owners should be able to dismiss if the stewards fail on their duty. Technically, they should be able to do it. But most of the time what happened was the directors, the shareholders were never interested in the company affair. They get annual report, they get the dividend, and they are quite happy with that one. They don't want to go and see what is happening inside the company. And this is exactly what happened in the Enron. Till the directors played out along with the auditors, no shareholder knew what was exactly happening because the shareholders did not take any active interest. So that is what we call stewardship theory. That is simply the directors being stewards of the shareholders. Then the next theory is a much broader theory, what we call stakeholder theory. There we are taking a much broader view. The management takes a broader view. They say they have a duty not only for the shareholders, but for the wider community, like employees, environment, society, government, tax authorities. So they take a wide thing, and that's what we call stakeholder theory. The age-old theory is what we call agency theory. Directors become the agents of the shareholders. So you are a director, I'm a shareholder, you are my agent. So obviously, as an agent, your first interest is your self-interest. You want to see how much agency commission will you get. So you will be looking from that angle and working all the time, try to get the best for you. And this is what the problem in most of the companies. The agency theory is basically they try to seek their own self-interest, and the directors are taking big remuneration packages. Directors are going in the first class. Directors are occupying 6-star hotels wherever they go. Finally, they have spent all the money on them, nothing left for the shareholders, nothing left for the employees even as a bonus. So this was a problem prevalent in 1991, 1992, and even in 80s, even today, it is still a problem. Still the directors try to make it, but the corporate governance has come up in a big way to put up certain blocks on the directors of what they can do and what they cannot do. So the agency theory was the old theory, but I would say now it's more of a stakeholder theory along with the stewardship theory. So what are the governance principles? So basically, ultimately your governance should be to achieve strategic objectives. Strategic means long-term objective. The directors must be looking all the time long-term. So this time also your case study, it was all about a company where the directors are working more on a day-to-day basis. So they simply did not have time to think about strategies. So that's not very good governance. The people should be delegated work on a day-to-day basis. The directors must be think tanks, thinking all the time how to achieve strategic objectives. That's the way they should work it out. Minimize risk. You must have very good control systems all the time. Have proper control systems. Don't keep your home windows and doors open in the night, because if you keep it open, you will know what will happen. Similarly, in a business, you have to have proper controls. Ensure that insurance is done on time. Ensure that proper internal controls are there, that two people need to sign a check, and bank balances are properly reconciled, and that computers are properly kept, and it is being served well, all that kind of a thing. I just saw this time the corporate the case study, the advanced copy just out for the P1. For the operational level, it's about a solar power company. So to maintain that kind of energy saving. So these are the things of the governance principles. Promotion of integrity through straightforward dealing. So this is again to deal straight with ethics. You must deal with total integrity, straightforward dealings and complete dealings. Never have any half truths, half lies, that kind of a situation. You must promote truthfulness all the time. This is where SIMA becomes very relevant for us. Responsibility to all stakeholders. So this is the modern thinking, just not only the shareholders, but you have to look at from every person in the organization. Stakeholder is a person who has an interest in the company. And anyone who has an interest, so we remember we discussed last time, even a terrorist can be interested in the company. So responsibility to all stakeholders, and also when you try to manage, you will obviously find conflicts. If you try to pay bigger bonuses for employees will be happy, shareholders will be unhappy because they get lesser dividends. If you try to pay big director's salary, shareholders will be unhappy, employees will be unhappy. If you try to cut down on supplier costs, suppliers will be unhappy, shareholders may be happy. So it's very difficult to satisfy all the people, as you see it in the world. No one can satisfy everyone in the world, but we must try and minimize conflicts between stakeholders. So that is why in F3 later on, you will come across something called proper dividend policy. So people know that the company will make this kind of a dividend. So try to minimize the conflicts that we can have in between the stakeholders. Clear accountability. So your accountability, the board of directors are responsible for the preparation of financial statements. Those things you should never compromise. Maintain independence of those who scrutinize. So remember we discussed last time the auditors. They are the people who are auditing and maintaining that independency. They are the people who do an independent audit of the work. So you must maintain their independence. If you try to, intimidate them and say, here, if you don't give me a good report, next year you will not get the audit, that kind of a thing, that is not proper corporate governance. And most of the, in that Enron company, what happened was the Arthur Andersen, the auditors, what they did was they were appointed as auditors. So the shareholders appoint the auditors. But so, for example, let's assume that they were getting 150,000 audit fee for that work, but that was not the end. Will you give me a second?
Okay.
Jenny? My son-in-law is calling. I'll give me a minute.
Okay.
Sorry, Jenny.
Hey.
Right. Yeah, my son-in-law, after my daughter's death for the first time, he went out of the country. So he's just giving a call to find out how we are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So basically, you remember we were talking about the auditors. So auditors are the people who have to give an independent opinion. Now, sometimes the directors can block that independent opinion. You know, Enron, what happened was the auditors were appointed by the shareholders to do that independent job. So, for example, they were paid 1.5 lakhs or whatever it may be for that job. But the directors, they were smart fellows. They appointed them, the same firm, to do some non-audit work by trying to give advice on taxation matters, trying to give advice on IT matters, trying to give advice on. So they did non-audit work. Non-audit work, that appointment is not by the shareholders. That appointment is by the directors, and they paid 300,000, of course, on the company, but they paid 300,000 for that work. Now, can you imagine the loyalty, right? For the shareholders work, they pay only 150, but the directors work, they pay 300,000. So basically what happened was the directors were able to put these auditors in their pocket, because if the directors don't do, or the auditors don't do what the directors tell them, they will lose that 300,000, isn't it? Right. So because of that, they ultimately lost the independency and they became pawns in the pocket of the directors, and simply they could not do the job, the primary job that they were expected, because they were getting 1.5 lakhs for that one, 300,000. So obviously there are people money conscious, money greedy, and they thought, oh my God, if we don't go along with the directors, we will lose the 300,000. Better keep the 300,000 and do the naughty thing, and finally they had to pay the penalty. So now the responsibility of maintaining the independence is not with the auditor, it is with the directors. Directors must ensure that they don't give too much of non-audit work and spoil the fellows. So these are all, and to provide timely, accurate, trustworthy reporting. Now this is again the financial statements. Generally, once the financial year is over, you must be able to provide the financial statements within a reasonable time period. The London Stock Exchange stays within 2 months, and trustworthy reporting. Trustworthy reporting means free of any misrepresentations, free of any material errors, and the financial statements complying with the accounting standards and the framework. So this is what the governance principles are. And to encourage more proactive involvement of owners. So as I said, the shareholders earlier, they were not bothered. Now even look at CIMA. We students, we members, we don't get involved so much. We pay the annual subscription, we get our exams done, and after that we never get involved with the CIMA. So we do not know what those council members are doing, what are they doing. So similarly in the companies, when the shareholders don't get involved with the things proactively, trying to find out what is happening, what is not happening, things can go wrong. And therefore now the corporate governance expects the directors to invite the shareholders for active, proactive involvement of the shareholders. Call them for a meeting, let them ask any questions, answer the questions. I remember a long time back, the shareholders won't come for the meeting even. Even if they come and if they try to ask a question, the chairman will say, no, that's not relevant, something. Now today it's the opposite. They are given the opportunity to ask any questions, and the directors must be prepared to answer any questions. So if you look at the corporate governance and strategy, basically the board of directors need what we call a corporate governance, that is to manage the company within certain ethical principles, certain regulations, certain transparency. But also they have to perform. If you try to go too overboard on regulations and all that, you may not perform. So you have to take appropriate risk levels. You have to take good use of resources, make some strategic decisions. Strategic decisions means always it's long term. It can have certain implications. So you must work on that kind of thing. And SIMA particularly highlights a certain number of key features for success: choice and clarity of strategy. Any organization will succeed or fail depending on the strategies what they have decided. And the clarity, the people must have a very clear understanding the strategy of your organization. If the strategy is going to be changed every now and then, half an hour, then it's not a strategy. I remember I was working in a company, that managing director, he calls up strategic meetings every 1 week. And what he decides today, next week he has changed it. Next week again he changes. So that's not a good strategic way of doing things. People get confused. People don't know in which direction to go. Sometimes after the meeting, some people come and ask me, sir, where should we go? Last time you told us, last week he told us to go like this. This week he's told us to go on another path. And finally, when you decide on a strategy, you must have an action plan to execute the strategy. The strategy must be implemented, adopted. For example, you might decide, if you are a retail organization, that you are going to do your sales through the website, not by appointing agents, but directly through the website. In that case, you must execute it by having a good website. If you want to appoint the agents, then you must go on appointing agents. So your strategy should be very, very clearly communicated, executed. And today, the companies need to grow all the time. If you don't grow, you are not going to be very successful. One way to grow is to go for good mergers and acquisitions. Try to always think of another company whom you can take over, or to merge with another company. That is the fastest way to grow. And for that, it is a big involvement. And generally, this is a F3 subject again, but you need to know the basics behind it. Responsiveness to information flows. Now, this is a very, very important one. In P3, you will learn a lot about it, but we are just introducing this subject here. Information. Lot of people get lot of information, but do they use this information for success of the company, or is it just information just being collected? Long time back, I was working in a company. I'm talking about 40 years back. No computers. All the financial statements were typed by those typewriters, the stenographers, and the typists. So we were working in a company where we were told every month, the following month, the 10th of the following month, we must give the month preceding monthly account. So our finance director, he was very, very focused on 10th of particular month. He will ask, Kumar, have you done the accounts? Yes, I say yes. Can you bring? I give it, and then he will say, thank you very much. He will put his initial and file it. He won't read anything. So we saw this. He is not reading, he is not putting anything, but he is very concerned to see that we prepare and the reports and give it to him on the 10th. So one of my colleagues, he was never doing it on the 10th. So one day, while we were walking through the corridor, this finance director called us and he asked, Kumar, have you finished? I said, yes. Can you bring it? I said, yes. My other friend also said, he said, have you finished? Yes. Can you bring it? He said, yes. I knew he has not done the work. So I was shivering what this man is going to do. You know what he did? It was 1979. He went, found the 1978 February copy. He got the stenographer, the typist to tipex that 8 and put 9, and he came and went and gave it. That man said, thank you very much, very well done, and he took it and put it in the file. That was that was how the information was used 40 years back. But today we know we can't do that kind of a thing. We need to have good information all the time, and that information must be properly used to get that competitive advantage. That is why we invest a lot on computers. That is why we invest a lot on real-time processing, all that, because we know 1 minute delay in information can make a big difference. So there is something called arbitrage, that is wherever there is a difference in the market bid for a product, you can exploit that market in a minute, say for that next 2 minutes, 3 minutes, you can exploit the market and you can make millions of money. You buy from one other market and you sell it to another market through online, everything, but you can make millions of money. So yeah, there was a P2 question, I think, P2 or P3, I can't remember. There was a question, one lady assistant treasurer saw there was an opportunity for them to make a big profit because there was she saw a currency fluctuation between two countries, and she thought she can buy from one country and sell it to the other one at a higher rate and could have made $1 million profit. So, but she was a pregnant lady, so she walked very slowly to her boss's office through the corridor and told the treasurer, the boss, that there is an arbitrage opportunity. There's an opportunity because I saw the information. There is a anomaly which we can exploit and make money. So the boss looked at her and said, yes, there was an opportunity, but by the time you walk from that office to this office, opportunity is gone. That's the way the information should be used. So the corporate governance insists on good information strategy, having right information. And of course, there is no question, it's all about risk management. How do you manage your risk? So there are a couple of models. We are going to look at the UK model. Is supposed to be the mother model for many organizations. Being CIMA being UK, CIMA focuses very much on the UK model, but it's not all. There are many other models. So the UK model is the latest. What we have is they did lot of corrections, and the latest what we have is the 2010 model. They some 1997 onwards, I think they did a lot of work, and they have done some work, and I think now it is 2010. They were looking at doing something on the 2014, but I don't think they did that one. So the 2010 model, which basically the corporate governance model that we have, which is called the corporate governance code. The UK model is principle based. There are two ways the corporate governance is implemented in most of the countries. One is what we call the principle based. The other one is what we call rule based. Yeah. America goes on rule based. America, it is the law. Whereas in UK, it is a more wider thing. No law, but you have to ensure that the principles of corporate governance is applied not according to the letter of the law, but letter of the spirit. So because of that, the UK one is more reasonable, I would say. So it's basically a culmination of many reports. You don't need to know all the names, but this is basically how the reports, how the corporate governance came up. Then we have the USA model. USA model, as I said, it's a rule-based one. It came up in 2002. It is called the SOX Act, Sarbanes-Oxley Act. It's the law in USA. So basically, it applies to all US organizations, even companies, even if it's a UK company, if it is listed in UK, then it applies to them. So this is what the Sarbanes model is. Then we have a South African model. It's again a principle-based model. It is called King's Report, and it is a more sort of, I suppose Nelson Mandela was there, the president during this period, and it is more of a wider community approach. They are not looking purely the shareholders; they are looking more of the other things and the social, environment, economic activities. So basically, it's a much more wider model, I would say, even than the UK model. Sorry, I think the UK model, I think, was again there were certain changes done, updated at 2014, but not big changes. I'll come to those 2014 changes in a moment. But the latest one we have is the 2014 model. Just a correction.
Okay. Okay.
Then we have this OECD model. that is the basically there are 34 countries which they got together and where they want a free market economy and they want one corporate set of rules for corporate governance. So this is what we call the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. And basically, there are 5 principles in that. This is a more of an international model. So it talks about shareholder rights. It talks about equitable treatment of shareholders with the local or foreign. It talks about the rights of the stakeholders. It talks about the disclosure and transparency, and it talks about the responsibilities of the board. So if you really look at almost all the models talks the same lines in different terminology, and the OECD, as I said, it's a more of an international model. So it's concerned with global investment and it is trying to always, because your investors can be totally outside the country. So it is trying to deal with that separation of ownership with the management. So basically the rules are there for them to work through the thing. So these are the 4 models: UK model, USA model, South African model, and the OECD model, more of an international model. So if you really look at the board, the US works on what we call a unitary board. Unitary board is only one board they have, and it has a mix of executive directors. Executive directors are people who are working inside the company, like the finance director, like the chief executive officer, like the HR director, marketing director. They are full-time employees of the company. And then we have non-executive directors. They are not working inside the company, but they come and participate at the board meeting and they come and participate at various committee meetings. But the entire board, EDs and NEDs together is the board, and everyone is collectively responsible for the preparation of financial statements, collectively responsible as a board. They have a right to participate in board meetings and decision making, and everyone, whether you are executive director or an non-executive director, you have a legal responsibility for management of the company and strategic performance. So this is what we call a unitary board, where the one board sits, members come from 2 different backgrounds, one with a very strong background of the company internal, other side comes with lot of expertise outside, but they come and sit in this board and they will contribute towards decision making. And of course, finally, everyone is same legal responsibility. So if you look at the advantages of a unitary board, it is a more active approach by NADs, because the non-executive directors, they know they can't just sit and wait in the board. If their legal responsibility is same for them and for the executive director. So because of that, they won't just keep their mouth shut. If they see something wrong happening, they will raise their voice and do it. And their views need to be taken in decision making because they are part of the board. They also have equal responsibility, equal decision making approach, and the chairman should allow them to talk, and therefore this thing. And NEDs are generally there because they have lot of experience outside the world. So when they sit on a board, they are unbiased. They see what you don't see inside the company, because sometimes when you're inside the company, you are moved by emotions, you are moved by certain empathies, all that kind of thing. But NEDs, they come from a totally a different background. They can make some questioning. Why should we keep that fellow? Now, some of the executive directors might think because he's a nice man, we have to keep him. But the non-executive directors don't want nice men. They want good people who can perform. So they can question, and that can make better decisions. I have worked in companies where we have non-executive. I found in those companies, it is much more easy even for you to work as the finance director, because those people will ask questions and that will put the other executive directors into some kind of a restriction. Otherwise, they will just try to, overboard themselves and do whatever they want to do. So their questioning will make better decisions. I'm retired. Now I work as non-executive director for some other companies in Sri Lanka. So there, when I go there, I see totally a different perspective because I see the company directors are sometimes too much engrossed with the work. They don't see the outsider's view. They don't see the community view. So sometimes I can bring that community view, outsider's view, particularly in my own financial area, and sometimes it helps them to take a better decision. Better relationship between directors because all of them work as one board, and therefore it is much more coordinated, more healthy relationship rather than otherwise. Disadvantages, since NEDs are involved in decision making, because since they also take part in decision making, sometimes when the things go wrong, they can't blame the executive directors because they also have contributed towards the decision. So that can make it as a disadvantage. And surely since they are not working inside the company, they need more time to study, to understand than the directors who are working inside the company. So this was I have seen it. Sometimes when a non-executive director comes and sits on the board, he does not know the head or tail. So he takes a long time, and after about 45 minutes at the board meeting, he will ask a question which we will take back again on the reverse time for another 45 minutes, because the directors will be talking about something called plant A and plant B. That fellow does not know A, B, C, anything. And suddenly he asks after 45 minutes, what is plant A? So you have to go and explain in the whole thing back to him, and that sometimes it can be more time requirement. Division between managers and employees. Because you are working as a board of directors, you are somewhat alienated from the staff, and the people at the lower level might think it's a board decision, let us carry on, or they might say it's a board decision which we can't do, that kind of a thing. And particularly, even though we said the shareholders should get involved, in a unitary board, shareholder involvement may be very minimal because they believe the non-executive directors will do the job for them. So they might think it's all right, let the non-executive directors do it. We don't know to come and do it. We have appointed them, let them do the job for us. That kind of Then we have the dual board. There are two boards here, which we call a two-tier board. Normally, mostly German companies trade up this model. There is one board, what we call a supervisory board. So basically, you have a employee representative, a bank representative. They are a supervisor. They are not the executive function. The management board is basically the executive, the finance director, the HR director, all those people will be in the management board. Supervisory board is something like the non-executive directors. They are people who will supervise the main management board. So you can see that there are two boards. Supervisory board will appoint the management board, and the two boards are entirely separate. They will meet separately. They will discuss separately, and you can see the problem because there will be lot of conflicts. One decision management board takes, the supervisory board will disagree. So there can be lot of disagreements, lot of confusions, all that things can happen. Then we have another one. This is called three-tier board. Japanese companies, they have that one. A board at the top level, they are basically policy board. They look at all long-term strategic issues, and they will pass down that to the functional board. The functional board is all the senior executives, the finance director, HR director, marketing director. They will do their functions, they are full-time workers. And then we have something like what they call a monocratic board. It's a more of a decorative board, and it's a kind of a, like a president of the company sitting on that board, and trying to guide the policy board, something like that. So generally you can see too many cooks spoil the broth. The too many boards can make decision making very slow. entity of the executives of the board is controlled by the chairman. Directors are expected to promote the interest of the employee once they join the board, because the Japanese are very, very concerned about employees. So to that extent, they believe the directors will not only talk about the shareholders, but will talk about the employees. So they are highly unionized. So this is what we call three-tier boards. So different structures. So again, if you look at a two-tier board or a three-tier board, what are the advantages? Separation of duties between monitors and EDs. So easily the monitors, the supervisory board can pinpoint the responsibility and executive directors because they are not part of the decision making. Supervisory will have the capacity to be an effective guard, a safeguard. So since they are looking from a different angle, they are not sitting on the same board, they can look at things in a very different way. And supervisory board will look after the needs of the stakeholders, more agile on strategy. They are very much concerned about the strategy, the supervisory. Disadvantages, obviously a lot of confusion. Can arise lack of accountability because one will say this was decided by the other board, the other will say it was your decision, we implemented. The executive board, they have a lot of inside information. They might suppress the information. Lack of independency. Decisions will be taken without EDs. And finally, it may not have that full backing of theirs and may not support the decisions. So these are some of the problems that you might have. Okay, now we come to a very important one, performance of the board. Ultimately, the corporate governance is all about the performance of the board. So basically, what they say is every director should be subject to independent scrutiny. He himself must scrutinize himself, and also the other directors must scrutinize and see whether Kumar has contributed enough for the board to keep him for the next year. So there are the big companies, what we call the blue chip companies, FTSE 350, and they should have a sort of external facilitator who will review the board performance once in 3 years. So they will get some external, maybe a audit firm or some people like that who will review the directors and see whether they have effectively performed or not. And chairman CEO is somewhat every year they will be appraised and their performance remuneration will be based on their performance. So they are driven for performance by the CEO. So there are a couple of boards. One what we call an effective board. So in an effective board, lot of strengths. We have a very clear strategy. They are all out to implement the strategy and they will put up some key performance indicators and they will ensure risk management. This is the typical dream board of any company. And they will look at from the stakeholders' point of view. They will regularly evaluate the board performance. So this is the board that you and I would like to have it in a company, but not that every time we will have. So having said that there's effective board, there are different kinds of boards we have. We have a board called rubber stamp board. So basically they make clear decisions. They listen to all the in-house experts and basically they rubber stamp the decisions. All the decisions are taken at the lower level. They give the authority. They say, yes, all right, stamp, you can go ahead. So they are basically not a board that is really looking for trying to think independently. They will rubber stamp the others' decision. So they will not argue, evaluate alternatives, totally dominated by the executives, relies on lot of fed information. They will not try to think from their own side what is the thing that you have to look at. They will support evidence, doesn't like any criticisms, and the role of the NED thereby is very, very limited. This is what we call a rubber stamp board. Then as you can see, this one, it is a talk in shop board. Talk only, no action. So Everyone's opinion, yes, 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 very good, very good, very good. That kind of, I have worked in a company like this. So every option is considered, but finally no decisions are taken. So no decision making because everyone's action is good. Kumar's one is also good. Jani's one is also good. Everyone's one is good. Finally, no leadership, no decision making, no direction. So you don't focus on any critical issues, no evaluation. So this is basically a talk in shop. Talk, talk, talk. Everyone's opinion given very valuable points. Very good, very good, very good. But nothing good comes out of the book. So this is a kind of a board we can have it somewhere. Then, if you have many accountants, you can expect a board like this, number crunching board. They basically don't look at long term, they look at short term positive NPV projects, and they are very, very conservative. Anything that is not bringing a 10% return, they will say that's not good, let's forget about it, that kind of a thing. Lot of emphasis on financials, so not good for the balanced scorecard companies. They don't look at the non-financials at all. They don't look at long term, they are looking short term all the time. No diversity because all accountants, almost everyone is finance conscious. Social, environmental issues completely ignored and very much risk averse. So if you look at in the business world, if we have a board with so many accountants, you will expect it to be a number crunching board. So don't join a board where you have so many accountants.
Okay.
Finally, this is I have worked in a place like that Dreamer board. This is all the time they dream. I remember I joined the company, he gave me a Toyota Corolla car. He said, Kumar, if we work well, we should be in 2 years' time, we should be traveling in a Mercedes. But in 2 years' time, I had to give my Corolla car because if I got for another 2 months, I would have been traveling in a Maruti car. So they think all the time long term, 2020 and 25 and 30 and all that long term strategies, nothing of today. They are completely out of today. Current focus, zero. They don't understand that we are facing immediate fire, but they are thinking of sky and like this land, and finally what you will see is only stars. Excessively optimistic. So you can see, I think now you may be able to find out in your organization what kind of a board they are. So you can see different people working in different boards. Then here we have the junky board or junky board, I don't know, but it is, as you can see, it's all fire. No long-term decisions. So basically they try to look at today's things, crisis to crisis. Or today no cash, borrow it from somewhere. They don't see how they can pay it. So like that they will go on and go on and go on. Basically it's micromanage, no macro management. So these are some other things which I want to pick up on the corporate governance. So there's one more thing about semi-detached board. Basically the board is very much separated from the company. So basically you're out of touch with the company, you're trying to give instructions from somewhere else. No attempt to implement decisions, poor monitoring of decision making. Basically these are these intellectuals at a higher level, something like academics trying to run a company. They get detached from the main line of activity and they try to sort of give instructions from the top, and this is what is happening. Right. So we have to do a little bit more on this one, but that's all right. When is your next free time, Danny?
It'll be Wednesday.
Yeah, Wednesday we are meeting activities, no?
Yeah, again, I can do only 1 hour then as well. So
no problem. It's all right. Okay, it's all right. So I will see you on Wednesday, 7:15?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I'll see you at 7:15. I'll send you the slides of this one today.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I have sent you some questions. Just try those things, Danny.
Yeah.
I have sent you some questions yesterday.
Yeah, I got them, so I'll be doing those during this week.
Maybe Saturday, maybe Wednesday when we meet, we will see whether we can look at some of those questions also.
Okay.
Okay, I'll see you on Wednesday. Thank
Okay.
you. Take care.
All
Bye.
right. Thanks.
Bye.
Have a good day. Bye.
And same to you.